according to let me just pull this up. So okay, I want to make sure I have it. So WCCF Tech is reporting something that Jez said on a Windows Central article, which I have in front of me. Now, Jez's article reads like this, gentlemen and chat. Microsoft's quest for short-term dollars is doing long-term damage to Windows, Surface, Xbox, and beyond. And in the opening part of the article, it says Microsoft has made a range of baffling decisions and awful missteps recently. You can trace everything back to its sustainable desire for money. Now, I do want to bring in what WCCF Tech had to say. Now, I read the article from Jez. I didn't get this, but I understand why there's a lot of questions. And I do have Jez's rebuttal, which I will read after the title, gentlemen. And FYI, I know it's only two people right here, right now. We do have Mav from Fun Speculation joining us shortly, as well as potentially OBM. So we're going to get some people in here. Don't worry about it. But let me read you what WCCF Tech had to say on their article. It says Xbox multi-platform plans reportedly don't have, and I quote, a red line regarding which games to bring to PlayStation and other consoles. So Jez Corden, and I got to get it over here. Hold on a sec. Let me find it because, again, I'm doing this on the fly, folks. Apologies. Let me see where Jez had his rebuttal. Trying to find it here. He said something to the effect, like I said, apologies. Oh yeah, this is what he said. I have it in front of me. Shout out to Silent Hill Dude who put this in the chat where there was a lot of conversation. Jez goes on to say they took what I said out of context like previously. And if you remember, a couple of weeks ago, it may be a month now, they reported on something that Jez said about all games going over to other platforms and not staying exclusive to Xbox. And he, of course, had to do a rebuttal for that. Well, actually, he had to say that, hey, listen, that's not what I said. You have taken my words out of context. And, well, here we are again. So, Don, I want to go to you first because you had a chance to listen to the Xbox 2+1, which included, of course, Jez Corden of Windows Central, Randall Thor 19, which of those two gentlemen are the hosts and very good friends of this program and the community for that matter. But they also had Jeff Grubb there. And you actually were able to hear what they were saying. I don't have that in front of me because I didn't get a chance to listen. What were your takes from what Jez had to say?
Yeah, so shout out to the Xbox 2, Jez and Rand. Shout out to Jeff Grubb as well. I got a chance to listen to the Xbox 2+1 and then make some comments about Nintendo to Rand, which he didn't like. But so he did talk a little bit about that red line that he wrote the article about. And although I didn't get a chance to read the article myself, I did get a chance to hear what he said about that. And it seems like it does overlap with what the article is about, that Microsoft is definitely looking for short-term returns on their
Financial
investment.
returns, yes.
Yep. And to reach that short-term goal of getting the money back for, say, ABK and Bethesda and the purchases that they have made, they are willing to, as we have seen before, put first-party Xbox games that were normally exclusive over to other consoles such as PlayStation and Nintendo. What he did say was that Microsoft definitely sees that there's not the red line per se, where there's basically the line that should not be crossed as far as certain franchises.
Right.
They say that, or he said that right now they do have these games set into different categories. something like what you saw during the
The business
invest
business
the
update.
not the business update, but the ABK trials,
Oh,
where he
okay.
had the large game, small game, medium game chart that showed why something like Call of Duty and Minecraft should be on other platforms, and then why these medium games like Starfield and Redfall should stay on as exclusives. But he says basically that they have broken that down even more, where there are franchises that once they put these certain franchises, which I interpreted as the Halos, the Gears of Wars, um, the Forzas, once those games go over, those are basically going to change what Xbox slash Microsoft gaming is as a whole, and it's going to change them forever. Where it won't be after one of those games crosses, that is going to be the uh basically the end of exclusivity for them. And they say that right now they're still reluctant to put those games that he says is the red line, but he still believes that there is a chance that that will eventually happen.
I mean, thank you so much for the update. See, and I got to be honest with you. From what I have read on social media, what I read from, again, I have the WCCF tech in front of the report in front of me, and the way that it's written certainly is a lot different from what you are specifically saying. Now, again, according to the official Twitter account of WCCF Tech, they say this: the Xbox multi-platform plans reportedly have no red line regarding which games could release on PlayStation consoles, as they revolve around a simple and short-term mandate. Now, again, what you're saying is certainly a little bit different than what WCCF Tech has said. And they have now once again done this to Jez Corden. I believe it's been multiple times, but I know for sure where I was involved, where we talked about it on the show, where it was a couple of weeks ago, regarding I think the terminology was it's like the burger, shake, and fries going over to PlayStation, meaning the Halo, the Forza, and the Gears. And he didn't say that. He didn't say the whole slate. And now he has come this comes full circle once again, where this red line has been like, well, there's a red line. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I think that, and I know that there is a lot of conversation about Microsoft is now in charge. Microsoft is now making the calls. But I got to be honest with you. Yes, Xbox is under Microsoft, who is the parent company. We understand that. They are a division of Microsoft. But we also have to take into account, and I know people don't want to hear this, Phil Spencer is still the head of Microsoft Gaming. I find it very foolhardy to believe that he has completely lost any say at any of these decisions. I understand that Satya has a responsibility to the board. I know that Amy Hood, who is the CFO, has a responsibility to the board. But we also have to understand that they have people in place that have big opinions, that were put in those places because they trust their judgment, and that is Phil Spencer, that is Sarah Bond, and of course that is Matt Booty. These are three very powerful people with an Xbox. And I listen. I know it's about making money. I understand that. No one here is a knucklehead and is going to suggest otherwise. But I think that there is something to be said about them still having a voice to defend this, quote unquote, imaginary red line that should not be crossed. You know what? Before we bring Hargeet in, Mav, brother, thank you so much for joining us. As you saw, we were extremely short today. Everyone had something going on. Black Viking had to do something with the kids because their school is ending. Kay Asante's at a recital with his daughter. So family, obviously comes first every time. But you're here, and we super appreciate it. How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing good, dude. I've just been running around at working, running errands, all kinds of stuff today. But I'm here now. Sorry I'm a little late.
No,
But
stop
yeah,
it.
lots of awesome stuff to talk about, man. And it's been a while since I've been here. So it feels good hanging out with Hargeet and Don and the OG Mr. Boomstick. Let's go.
Well, we definitely appreciate you being here, Don. Listen, I want to bring you back in. Listen, I'm going to read a line here from the story, where they mentioned the red line. So it goes on to say, in a new post shared by Windows Central today, Jez Corden revealed some new details on the Xbox multi-platform plans, which are known internally as Project Latitude. According to the report, these plans have sparked debate inside Microsoft about whether or not they are a good idea, as Microsoft is pushing for a no red line regarding which games could be released on competing hardware, including PlayStation consoles. This approach is centered around CEO Satya Nadella and CFO Amy Hood's mandate to increase every department's margin, but it may end up damaging the Xbox brand even more, especially if franchises like Halo and Gears of War become multi platform. Okay, so you had a chance to listen to the show live with the guys. I want to get your hot take on this because the doom and gloom for Xbox is on a level where I get it. Look, let me put myself on the stand, folks. Okay, if there's any old prick in the room, it's me. I'm going to be 54. I've been gaming since 78. I have been taught that when you buy a console, it has a subset of games, and you stay in that ecosystem because you love those games. For me, since I was a kid, I had an Atari and an Intellivision. I had a ColecoVision. I had an NES. I had a Sega Master System. I had a Genesis. I had a Super Nintendo. And I had a TurboGrafx 16. I had a PC Engine. I had both Neo Geos, both cart and disc. I have owned the Saturn, the Dreamcast, the N64. I have owned everything. And you know how I got it? Not because my pops bought it for me. I worked super hard as a kid. I delivered newspapers, the Daily News, the Post. I made lemonade stands. I made candy stands, whatever I could to make money. And I bought these consoles. And I have always been a multi-console gamer since I was a kid. I have, again, I'm never going to bend the knee to seeing Halo on PlayStation. I will never sign off on that sanction. Now, is that out of my hands? If that happens, it absolutely is. Does that mean that I give the big FU to Microsoft and Xbox? The answer is I will not do that. That is my console of choice. I will continue to play. Do I like it? I don't like it. I think it sucks. And I think that the money people are involved, and that is always disastrous. But I do believe in Phil Spencer and Sarah Bond and Matt Booty to steer the ship, steer the ship off the rocks. I don't think it's going to be day and date there. I don't think you get Halo over there. I don't think you get Gears over there. I don't think you get Forza over there. That's my opinion. Do I like it? If it happens, no, I will not like it. I would think that is it's just going to be big business, and that sucks. But Don, I want to get your personal hot take on what has been put out there, not only by WCCF Tech, but also by Jez Corden, who wrote the story, and of course then put it out there on the socials that they kind of twisted his words.
Yeah, so although I did listen to the Xbox 2+1, I know it's not that's more of a casual conversation compared to what he's actually reporting in Windows Central. So it could have been worded completely different than what he said. But for the most part, I think the red line situation, as a fan of Xbox, just like you, Boom, I don't like it. I don't think that it's a good idea. Exclusivity has always been the driving factor for selling these consoles. since the beginning, basically. Even back when consoles became the big thing with NES and Sega, it was always Mario versus Sonic, Zelda versus Phantasy Star. Um, there's always been this rivalry between IP that drove people to these consoles. So as I can say that I want I wanted Xbox to win in the exclusivity battle. I wanted them to compete on the same footing as PlayStation and Nintendo and win out ever since this generation started. That's what my hope was. That's what my belief was. But at the same time, I know Microsoft and Xbox, and I know that they have always been too early when it
Yep.
comes to certain things that at the time we all don't like, such as the all digital future, such as having a camera in your house that's your assistant, such as what else was there in the Xbox One? It seemed like there was all these things that we didn't like, that we revolted against, and then years later those things just became the standard. And I'm as much as I don't like it, you can't really deny that there is some business sense to it. And the more and more we get reports from PlayStation, the more we see Square Enix giving up the PlayStation exclusivity, and you start to realize that maybe this is just the direction that gaming as a whole is going in, where yes, Xbox will probably be the first to cross the red line, and we will see the Halos, the Gears, and Forzas going to other platforms. But at the same time, I believe that will just be the catalyst for PlayStation, where they just seem to be a little bit slower when it comes to following Xbox's example. As you can see, they're starting to get fully on board with PC day and date. Um, in the original topics, they did talk about the PlayStation AAA game that would be day and date on PC, that some PlayStation fans would probably not like to see, but it just seems like that is the direction that they need to go to sustain their business, where they would need that extra platform. And after after seeing Xbox go multi-platform, they'll probably understand that this is probably the way to do it as well, for them to survive in this climate, where these budgets for these games are getting way too big. The time it takes to make these games are getting way too long. And as much as I love Nintendo, they're going to be 20 years late to the party, but I can see a future where we will see a Mario on PC. And that, I just feel like this is the direction that we're going, but Xbox is going to take all the bullets for it, and then once the others join in, it'll just be nothing but praise for them. So yeah, that's the way I see it.
I mean, it's look, I said it just the other day, and Hargeet, let's bring you in on it. I know you're gonna have some hefty opinions. You, like me, are old school. We understand the business of gaming. It's a big business. It's a business that is seeing more layoffs in the first 5 months of 2024 than you had all of 2023, which it has topped 10,000 human beings in gaming have lost their jobs. Now, listen, before anybody starts throwing the virtual tomatoes, I get it. They're not the only industry that are losing jobs. We know it's every sector, and it sucks. But we're a gaming channel, right? This is what we're here to talk about. Again, if you've lost your job, you're outside of the gaming sector, my heart goes out to you. I'm thankfully I'm retired, but I worked a very dangerous job to do that for 21 years. I don't take it for granted or lightly. But this is a gaming conversation, so we're going to keep it that way. Hargeet, I know you're not in social media. You heard what I had to say. You heard what Don, who expertly, by the way, broke down a part of the Xbox 2 podcast, the 2+1. We've been hearing about this multi-platform, thing for a while. This is not the first round of doom and gloom. This is probably the 6th or 7th. Me personally, I've just gotten so tired and bored of it that I don't actually pay it any attention. So why are we talking about it here? Well, because the people are asking for it. Like I said, coming into this chat, and obviously, I'm running around at the last minute. Everyone's like, "Hey, Boom, you got to talk about this." And yeah, of course, we're not going to shy away from the tough conversation, which is what we're going to have tonight. What are your thoughts on the quote unquote red line?
Yeah, well, look, timing wise, eventually this stuff is all going to change, right? But right now, that seems kind of like a bad idea. There's some things that they're just going to have to keep kind of on their platform. The short-term gain thing is an interesting one, and that was what his article was. I read the article. It had nothing to do with it. Didn't, at least that I remember, mention anything.
I did not see any of that conversation. That's why I was very surprised, because I'm like, wait a second. I read it twice, and I'm like, I'm looking for it, and I'm like,
it's not there. It must have been in the podcast, right? But and again, as usual, unless he puts it in print, it's supposed to just be kind of rumor and take it as such, right? But WCCF Tech again takes rumor as fact and moves forward with it. I don't know that they're going to do that. There would be a lot of brand damage if they decided to put something like Halo on something else, right? I mean, Halo just
absolutely would be
Xbox.
1,000%. Not it's ridiculous if they thought about doing it. Sorry.
Yeah, and it's done well enough that I don't think they should realistically consider that one. They need to figure out what to do with Halo to begin with, right? Forget about trying to make more money off of it. They just need to figure out what to do with Halo to begin with. When it comes to the other ones, I could potentially see them. But again, I don't think it's necessary at this point. I still think they should just wait until Call of Duty settles and see what happens
1,000%.
when Call of Duty is marketed by Xbox. Is that going to shift the market, right? If it is, then what does it matter? And Call of Duty was supposed to be the thing that takes away this headache, right? It brings in so much revenue that they shouldn't have to worry about this. I think they're just kind of a little early on their push for more financial viability. When they know once the integration costs go away, once they're fully done, and Call of Duty is just raking in money, Candy Crush is just raking in money. You got World of Warcraft with massive expansions coming later in the year. There's just no reason to be worried about this. They have enough money coming in. They just need to kind of let this roll a bit, give it the year it needs to kind of solidify before they make any decisions. Now, look, I don't know how much. Now, we've all been speculating. We don't know how much push there is and scrutiny there is coming in from the finance folks, right? I don't know that this is just Satya. I don't think he's going to be that micromanaging of everything, but he's going to say, hey, I want a plan, work with Amy to figure out what the plan is, and, bring it to me, right? And, Amy and Tim are going to sit there and say, okay, well, here's our viability and profit, potential for the next 2 years, 3 years, whatever it is, right? And given that, these are the things we should do to maximize profits. On top of all this stuff, whatever we look at here, because we're just talking about gaming and having fun, there is an entire world of economic hurt that's happening. Things are just not selling as much as they were before because people don't have expendable income. And gaming is absolutely just entertainment. It's a hobby, and it does not require people to spend money on it. They can if they have extra money, right? So things are going down. You see 30% declines. That's not normal, right? People are seeing that across the board now. There's a reason. And, that's going to happen across everywhere. That's why all these layoffs are happening. Things are equalizing as to where they actually will be as far as actual expenditures, right? So, there's just realities to this. I don't know where it settles. Now, Phil did say his plan was to say, I'm going to find more customers than to charge more for my current customers. It might be better to do both, right? And say, all right, in some cases, you just charge more, right? And in the case of Call of Duty, that's already going to happen. There's going to be microtransactions galore in that. They already have that in Diablo and stuff. So let some of those games just do that, right? That's fine. They have this nice pattern where if you want to get early access to a game that's coming into Game Pass, buy the Super Ultimate Edition. And so you pay a little extra. But hey, you know what? That's money in their coffers that comes in, even though it's going into Game Pass. So it's another way to mitigate that risk. It seems to be working. A lot of these bigger games that people do actually go ahead and buy that, right? So in very large numbers. So it's been working. Just keep up with it, right? So their big games are coming. That's the other part, right? You just look at the slate of games that are coming this year, next year. You're like, okay, let it roll. Let's see what that looks like, right? And let's see how the money comes in. Now, if we see that it's a problem, if they come out and say, oh, well, we didn't make all the money we wanted to, you're probably going to see some things change, whether it's closing studios, whether it's putting games on other platforms, whether it's trying to monetize in other ways. They're going to have to do something. But look, the malaise of economic unhappiness will last for a little bit, but eventually it'll dissipate. Once that does, hopefully things get better for the industry. But we'll see how that goes for these folks specifically. The red line thing, look, when you in open discussions, you have to understand when you're having discussions at that level, everything is on the table, right? And if you're going to talk about it, you're going to say, cool, what if I put Halo there? What does that mean? How much brand damage am I going to create? How much revenue am I going to generate? Is it worth it or not, right? So you have to have those discussions. So they're absolutely going to do that, right? You'd be foolish not to. If I put it on Nintendo, what is it going to mean? If I put it on PlayStation, what is it going to mean, right? They have to have that discussion. And then they might ultimately say, yeah, not worth it. Or they might say, damn, we'd make like 4 billion more. Crap. I really can't say no to that. We don't know, right? So that's why you do those analyses, right? So there's fanboyism, but then there's just raw business, right? And at a raw business level, they're going to look at everything they have as an asset and say, what can I leverage from my assets to get more revenue, to get more profit? And that's the way business works, right? So, I don't doubt that those discussions are 100% happening. All games, everything they have. And then it's up to Phil, Sarah, Matt, to figure out, all right, what does it mean to our brand if we do this? If we go ahead and do that, are we going to, totally destroy our Game Pass? Are we going to totally destroy our ecosystem? We have to weigh that out, right? So there might be a benefit here of X amount, but there might be a detriment here of X amount, and that might be too much, right? So, but that's why you do it. You have to go through these gyrations and exercises. So yeah, I'd be surprised they weren't looking at it, because if you look at it, you look at everything, right? And then eventually you come to the conclusion of these games, right? They did the experiment, and we found out Hi-Fi Rush did not sell, right?
No.
Pentiment, who was going to expect it to sell, but it did not sell. Grounded, okay, we're not getting numbers, but right? And then we see where Sea of Thieves is. It's looking good, but we're not talking 20 million. We're probably talking like $1.5 million,
right?
Which that's not bad, but it's also not the 40 million it's already established on Xbox and PC, right? So they have to weigh that out and say, is this good? Was it a useful test? Did it do what we wanted, right? Do we need to go get a zeitgeisty game, something like Starfield or Indiana Jones or something like that, and test the waters over there and see what we get? Maybe you might see one of those go over, right? Maybe after 6 months, a year, 2 years, they might just do it just to see, okay, if we do one of those games that people are clamoring about, would we get 15 million in sales? Cool, because then that's worth it to them, right? It's definitely worth it to them. So then they'll have to weigh that out. But I think they will do another test of one of those kind of games. I think it's better to hold off on those core games. Fable, Forza, Halo, Gears. I'd say hold off on those. And I'm sure they're looking at the same thing, right? To say, okay, we don't want to kill our brand. We do need to look at revenue, though. And if we're going to continue this pattern, let's say they go buy Square Enix. Would they say, hey, you know what? Why don't we take these things and make them exclusive? What would that mean? What if we keep them multi-plat? What would that mean, right? And where is that balance? We're just seeing it now. Square's coming out and saying, yeah, this idea of doing the exclusive thing, that really sucked. So we're not going to do that again. So would they be reticent to do it again? Yeah, probably, right? So, that's the kind of thing they have to look at, right? If they're done buying, that's one thing. If they're going to go invest again, this same exercise kind of needs to be there and say, well, what does it mean, right? If I buy Crystal Dynamics, is that going to be something that's going to be everywhere? Or am I saying, no, I'm going to take those Tomb Raider games and make them exclusive, right? What does it mean for the sales? How is it going to recoup its cost, right? Yep. So they're going through these gyrations. It is what it is, right? So I think what Jez is saying is they're looking at everything. That doesn't mean it's going to happen, right? And the second part gets missed. And this is why I hate the whole media machine bullshit, right? Yep. Just latch on the first part. Anything goes. It's like, yes, in an analysis, not in a, hey, we're going to actually do it. But in an analysis, you do that. Absolutely, you do that. You think Sony isn't doing the same thing, by the way? They are. They're going to say, well, what if we do this? But then our fans, look at all these Twitter morons who are coming after us. Oh, my God, it's the end of the world. Okay, and that's just if it goes to PC. Forget if it goes to Xbox, right? And they're going to weigh that, right? And say, what does it mean to us, right? They're going to say, hey, well, I could make X amount of money versus I might piss off 10% of my customer base. Okay, is it worth it or not, right? They'll have to figure that out. But they're going to do it. They're going to do it. And I'm sure Hiroki said, go figure that out for me because you're not making enough money, right? So it's just the way it is, right? Business does these kind of things. That does not mean it's going to happen, right? Just keep that in mind. And unfortunately, again, WCCF Tech takes it too far and says speculation. Here's what might be happening in their, conference room. That does not mean it's actually done, right? So, but that's kind of where it is, right? At least those are my thoughts on what I think is happening.
This has been my favorite conversation all year, Boom.
I know.
With starting in January with the first rumors, and then it kind of kept going and going and going, and then we got the reality of the 4 games, and then now it's ongoing conversation about this, right? And I think ultimately, like, I come from this from 2 different angles, because there's my thought process on the business side where I think they're making mistakes, right, with this decision, because like Jez's article that he did write about short-term gains versus long-term vision, right? That was a case that we were making after the layoffs last week when we were talking about those studio closures, and cases we've made against other publishers in the past, always chasing the golden goose or experimenting on the things that are always just trying to make the most money and not really going with creative freedom and all these other things. And then they cancel projects and all these other kind of things. It's like they always are chasing something now without having a vision for the company going forward. And that's something that Square has got Square into trouble. That's why we saw all of a sudden their new change of direction where they've finally come to their senses. In their words, they've awoken, right? And it's something we've been complaining to them about. And this is something I will always argue against on the business side. Don't sacrifice your long-term vision that somebody like Phil Spencer and the rest of the Xbox team has been building up for years for the sake of just, well, we need to make some cuts now and we're just going to handle this as business. It's just business. It's business. It's business. And that can be studio closures. It can be making games multi-platform. It can be all that. Now, there's a certain line that I think you can cross, right, without doing too much damage. And for me, I look at the games that they already released multi-platform, and I think, okay, did that really affect anybody? Did when it actually happened and those games released on those other platforms, I wasn't seeing too many Xbox fans crying about it. I just saw that those games released, and now we're in this world where those games exist on other platforms, and that's the new world we live in. But you guys are right. What happens if it is Halo and Gears of War, Fable or Forza Motorsport and those kind of things, those tentpole franchises? What does that do to the brand? And I don't know. I will say for business wise, I think it would be the wrong move. And that's why I don't think that they're doing it. I don't think they're going to go that far because it just doesn't make any sense. You can look at dollars and cents wise, but if you look at how subscription models work, how ecosystems work across all forms of media, you want some exclusivity to draw people into your ecosystem and to choose to go to your storefront or your place of business. And that is just how the business is going to work, and it has always worked. Now, can there be more gray area? Yeah, there can be, because they already are in that world, and they have acquired multi-platform publishers that exist in that world, and they've already been in that world before with games like Minecraft. So I think they're willing to go and explore and experiment and try some of these other games that aren't necessarily some of these tentpole franchises. Maybe they make some wrong decisions along the way. I think the money guys are going to push more for the extreme as opposed to the people that have had the vision in the first place. So it's always going to be a little bit of a give and take going forward, because we live in a new world now where Microsoft is pretty much the biggest game publisher in existence as far as the amount of studios they have releasing on all these different platforms, as well as their own exclusives portfolio, as well as the huge gaming subscription service where they put their games actually day and date. They have a lot of different things to consider now. It's not just one model. They are looking at a bunch of different considerations. They literally have the biggest multi-platform release every year with Call of Duty now.
And that's theirs.
Yeah. Right. It's theirs. Like Diablo just had another huge expansion. That is another huge multi-platform release. There's going to be ongoing all this kind of stuff. And the question is, how far do they go in that direction? Now, it depends on if they want to keep a brand identity. And because they have a subscription service and they have storefronts in which they want people to spend money in, they will always have to have some form of brand identity unless they decide to give that up. And I don't see a $3 trillion corporation deciding to just forego the possibility of making 30% more on every single purchase that happens in their store. Right? So that for that reason, exclusivity, I think, will always exist. It's just dollars and cents wise. It makes no sense just to completely abandon that concept. So for me, I look at it like, what's going to happen? I don't know, but doesn't make sense business wise just to forego and just put everything on multi-platform. Right now, then there's a consumer side that I talked about before. And this is where I've been, because I usually speak mostly from my perspective of what I want, right? And this whole multi-platform conversation all year, really just, I don't care. You know, like, for me, it doesn't affect me too much what other people play. So I don't really care if other people on other platforms play whatever. I'm going to choose to play it on an Xbox because that's what I prefer to play on, right? And the fact that other people are going to play Call of Duty on PlayStation won't affect the amount of enjoyment I get on Call of Duty on Xbox this year. It never has before, so it's not going to now, right? And the same with any other game. If I decide to go play Sea of Thieves, I'm not going to say, wow, I'm loving this, but it really sucks that this other guy gets to play it. You know, I'd like it a little bit less. I understand there's a little bit of specialness that goes with sometimes with these games when they're really pushed as exclusive and kind of be built for one platform. But I haven't really seen too much of that lately in a long time, honestly, where something has really stood out as like, this is special because it's only here, right? And for me, it's just, I just want to play the games, man. And so consumer side, I haven't really cared about this. I don't think, honestly, any of those decisions are going to affect too much of what I'm able to enjoy, because it's such a big business now that they're still going to be putting out all these games, and they're still going to be making hardware, because there's a market there of people that are console enthusiasts that are going to be purchasing hardware. And they have also the storefront that's going to be in that hardware for people to purchase, and they'll make more money on anybody that spends money in their box as opposed to anybody else. So as long as there's 20, 30, 40 million people that are willing to, over a period of time, to buy hardware, I think they're going to sell it, because you just be throwing away money not to. Now, will we get the losses? I don't think they're going to be willing to take losses like they are like up front over the long term. That's why you have these rumors of console enthusiast box. Be prepared potentially for more expensive hardware in the future. And that's not just from Xbox, but that's also probably from PlayStation as well. Right.
Yep,
So
I agree.
Just what I see for the future of gaming. Does that mean it's happening today? No. Does it mean it's what's happening in 3 years from now? Not necessarily, but we'll have to wait and see what happens, man. There's so many good games coming out. that's the whole conversation that's been going on with the doom and gloom over that aspect all year.
You know what's funny? You know, you mentioned games coming out, which of course Hellblade is next week. That's the start of the onslaught. Now, I don't know if you got a chance, chat. Which we got almost 800 people here. That is freaking crazy. So thank you so much for tuning in and checking out this very, very pointed conversation. And again, I know that if you came here for the Hellblade conversation as well as, of course, the Sony story that ran on IGN ran an article, and obviously, it to me, it's a big story. It's something that we've talked about before, but I'm very surprised it came the way of IGN. And again, I don't like IGN. You guys know, you folks know how I feel about them, but I do give credit where credit is due. And if I'm going to pull their article and use it, I'm going to give them credit for the written article.
So before we go too far, I just wanted to add a little bit to what Matt said. So
no, please, no. We're not talking about this other stuff. We're going to continue on this, but yeah, please, by all means, jump in.
So you mentioned about the 30%, and they have to take a loss to get that. And I'm wondering at what point do they say, you know what, if more ROG allies sell that run a Windows Xbox thing, and we get whatever it is, $30-$40 for the Windows on there, that's a better proposition for Microsoft than it is to even bother to have a store to sell the games, because they do lose quite a bit up front that they have to make back, right? And unfortunately, as we see, a lot of the games that sell are in smaller quantities because most people are casuals and they only buy a handful of games. The better proposition is to just own those games. So they went and bought Call of Duty. They went and bought Minecraft, right? What if they just bought Take-Two? Said, we don't care where it is. We're going to put it everywhere. We don't care. But we're getting that 70%. And we're getting it for one of the biggest games that with NBA 2K coming out every year. And then GTA, which just dominates all the time, right?
Yep.
And if you say, I got COD, I got Minecraft, I got GTA, I got
they
NBA,
have Diablo, they have Overwatch,
all those World of Warcraft, all these games, right, that are just generating money. Is that a better proposition from a market position perspective than to say I need a box where I'm hoping players will actually buy games and give me that 30%, which may not even be 30% because a lot of times they're in Game Pass and that cuts it down to 10%.
I think
Xbox, you know what I mean? Like,
I think you're onto something there, but just in general, I don't think they're going to just throw away that. I think it just becomes less of the necessity.
Exactly.
Right?
I think that's where they're going to go. Yeah.
And I think overall, like, they're still going to have that option for the people that are the enthusiasts that like that ecosystem, right? Because there's still a lot of people that are willing, that like to spend money on an Xbox, right? Yeah. And if for them, it's like, well, we're not just going to give that up. Like, they'll just be foolish too. But it has been less important. We've seen for them because the second they started putting their games day and date on Steam, right? As well as other games go multi-platforms, become less important to have to force people into their store. I just don't foresee a future where they just throw all that away. For the sake
they're
of
definitely going to keep their store, right? I think they're just going to emphasize just having the cash cow itself than to say, hey, can the cash cow come to my store?
And
because they have the money.
And to add to this too, something we talked about, Hargeet, like, you really want to talk about who's winning here, right? If this is what it's all about. This is what it's all about, is winning. Okay, you have games that now PlayStation is dependent on Microsoft. They're dependent on Call of Duty and these other multi-platform games that make them the most money. Microsoft has Trojan horse themselves into PlayStation to where that's going to be their biggest money makers, is the Microsoft games. And where you think, who has the strength there? Who has the power? Who has the control?
Exactly.
People spend the money on the content. The consoles don't make that much.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Don.
Okay, I was gonna say, a lot of people look at Sega going third party as the moment that they lost. But if Sega was the number one in revenue and profits, basically in the position that Tencent is in after going third party, I don't think anyone would actually say that Sega lost to Nintendo and PlayStation if they were the ones at the top of the industry. And Microsoft actually has the chance to be that. even though they're saying they're going to keep the box, they're still going to keep the box there for the console gamers who still want it.
Yep.
Even if they were to put all of their games, they could just go full slate on other platforms, and they collect that 70% from everyone, and they become the number one publisher, or really in gaming in general, even over Tencent. At the yes, we'll say they lost the console war. Even Phil Spencer has said they lost the console war. But when it comes down to it, they're still number one at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think the console becomes something different going forward. I think the portable PC type device is going to have more of the market going forward, because people want that. They kind of want the issue they're running into is just the interface, right? If they can fix that interface issue, the Switch has been selling like crazy. Mm-hmm. Why? Because it's a good portable device, very easy to use, has games that people can play easily, while they're on the go, right? And it docks and plays on your TV. So if that is something they can resolve, and that becomes the majority of what Xbox does, is say we partner, right? And they love to partner, right? And that could be your Xbox. And I still think they're going to have their own, just like Surface. I think they're going to have their own.
I believe they are. Yes. Yeah.
And that's going to be an interesting new world. And it'll be tougher for Sony to make a case where, well, the ROG's going to have everything. Their games plus Xbox games plus everything PC. It's not going to be limited to just whatever's released on PlayStation, right? So it's going to be an interesting thing for them to have to handle when Microsoft says, well, you can come to our ecosystem, and let's not forget the fact that when you're on a Windows whatever device, your ecosystem is still Xbox. You're still running Xbox Chat. You're still running Xbox Game Bar. You're still running Xbox whatever in the background, DirectX. It's all Xbox, right? But you can obfuscate it and say, I want to use Discord. They don't care. Fine, go for it. You want to use Steam? Don't care. Go for it, right? But you're still running Windows. You're still running their system, right? And all of that stuff's still there for you. You want to use Game Pass? It's Windows. It's right there for you, right? So that is the thing that they have as a very cool leverage going forward. So I think now what you were saying, it might be more expensive to get an Xbox because it'll be a more enthusiast box, right? And then you'll have a whole bunch of partners that will give you ranges of lower or higher performance, right? And you can pick whatever you like, and whether you want to do portable or desktop, right? Whatever you want,
and whatever storefront you like, probably as well.
Yeah, right. And they might. Well, I think they're going to combine the storefronts, right? That's one of the things they're looking to do. To say, hey, the Microsoft storefront, it'll give you your Epic store, it'll give you your Steam library, it'll give you your itch, right? Whichever one you want, plus our stuff. Go for it. Everything right here. And then that way you can just launch whatever you want in a cohesive, easy way on Windows. Or you don't want to use it, no problem. We give you choices, right? Do whatever you like, right? So, but yeah, I think that's going to be interesting. And then it's going to be interesting to see what PlayStation does to counter that, because how do you counter that? And so we'll see what they do, right? Nintendo's going to Nintendo. They're Nintendo. They'll do their thing. They'll be fine.
It's so funny though. You bring up like PlayStation again. What are they going to do to counter? And like people are making this argument like Xbox fledgling and Xbox and all this stuff. If you look at the reality over the last 5 years, okay, about what the platforms have lost and gained. Okay, look at PlayStation. What made them special before? It was all those Japanese games that were exclusive to PlayStation, only on PlayStation you could get. They had the pipeline of the AAA single player action adventure, tentpole type Sony games and all that going forward, right? And look at them today. Okay, they just lost the half of their exclusives with Square saying they're going to go multi-platform going forward, right?
Exactly.
Atlas is now putting games on Xbox and then also doing Game Pass deals as well. So they lost the whole, this is the only place you can play these kind of games, right? So that's gone. Where's
I don't think Koei's going to do that again, are they? I don't think Rise of the Ronin happens again.
And where's the pipeline of the big tentpole first-party big AAA games? The only one we know about right now is one, and that's Wolverine, and that's still 2 years away. So you really think about with everything Xbox, all these studios they acquired, everything they're doing, all these acquisitions, the second half we're about to have, starting with Hellblade 2 coming out next week, all this stuff dropping into a subscription service day and date, unlike the competition with PlayStation that doesn't even have that. So you have look at everything Xbox has gained over the last 5 years and then look at everything that PlayStation has lost and tell me who has the better strength going forward.